In this video, you're going to learn the fastest way to lower blood pressure naturally. And stick around because I'm going to cover the root cause of why people get high blood pressure so that you can not only lower it fast, but it will stay down. My name is Dr. Story. I've been a doctor of chiropractic for over 29 years. I help people naturally using natural healthcare methods to improve their health so they can change markers like blood pressure. All of the things I'm going to say in this video are backed by research as well as my own personal experience in dealing with patients. So here's something you want to be very aware of. There are three components to high blood pressure. First is the simple amount of blood inside the arteries. And the best analogy is to think of arteries in our body as like hoses, and the water is our blood. So if you think of a hose in your backyard and you push a lot of water through that tiny hose, then there's just going to be a lot of pressure inside that hose, where if the water is just trickling out of the hose, there's simply less pressure in that hose. And that's a good analogy when it comes to blood pressure. The second component is your heart rate, how fast your heart is beating. So if your heart is beating extremely fast and extremely strong, then it's trying to push a lot of that blood through the arteries in a very forceful way. Whereas if you had a low heart rate and it wasn't pumping very hard, then that's going to lower your blood pressure. The third component, and this is one that helps in the long run, is the actual stiffness of the arteries. So again, that analogy of a hose and water, if the hose is really stiff and is not very compliant and won't expand, then every time your heart beats, if it beats fast, if it beats forcefully, and there's a lot of water, or blood in this case, then it's going to be really trying to push a lot of blood through a very narrow vessel, blood vessel. The analogy again is too much water going through a hose that will not expand. That's the third component. The first solution is breathing exercises, and there are many different types of breathing exercises that can be done. One method that I'm going to show you right now is the 4-7-8 method. And this method is where you inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then exhale for 8 seconds. This has been effective to show people how to relax their body, how to stimulate the vagus nerve, which will relax the blood vessels, and relax your mind as well. So this is very useful for some people that get anxiety before having their blood pressure checked. But also, if you do it not just before you have blood pressure checked so you can get your normal resting blood pressure, but to do it on a daily basis, it can have very powerful effects on your mind and controlling stress. Now, if this is a method you're going to use, then 4 seconds of inhalation, 7 seconds of holding your breath, and 8 seconds of an exhalation, we're talking that's 19 seconds for every cycle of breathing. So let's just round up to 20. That would be 3 deep breaths per minute. So if you do this for 5 minutes, that's going to be about 15 breaths for 5 minutes. And this is the calming effect that you're doing. So the best advice I can give you to remember to count would be to use your phone. So let me just go ahead and I'll show you how this works. You would hit start and you would inhale. Oh, I screwed up. Let me show you how to do this. So I'm gonna give you a better way. You just hit start and wait 5 minutes, but you count with your fingers or hands. So it would look like this. Let's do this. So that's how you do it. That would be a way to use your phone, and once it hits 5 minutes, that way you can remember how long you've been doing it for. There's another method, and it's not breathing. It's totally different. Now the second method is called isometric exercise, and this has been researched extensively and actually can lower blood pressure in a short term, but has long-term effects when you practiced regularly. So what you can do is just get like a water bottle like this, something that fits your hand. And there's two ways of doing isometrics that have been done in research, but you could essentially do any isometric exercise, like a plank, for example. Many people have a difficult time doing a plank, so you try to find things that they can do. And what you'll do is you'll grab onto something like this and you'll squeeze it as hard as you can for about 10 seconds. And then let it relax, and then you can do the other hand, squeeze it for about 10 seconds, just like that, and relax. Do the other hand and do cycles of this. You could do 10 on each hand. So they do have other things like grippers that you can use that can monitor how much strength you're using, but ultimately if you give yourself enough of a grip that it's forceful, kind of as hard as you can, maybe a 9 out of 10 in terms of strength, that can work well. The other thing is a wall sit, and this has got a lot of benefits. Let me see if I can set up the camera here to show you how to do this. It's just like you'd be sitting in a chair, but you go up against a wall so that your knees are 90 degrees, and just stand here like this for about a minute. Now this is actually hard because yesterday I rode my bicycle 64 miles. My legs are tired. But in this particular case, you hold it for about a minute or as long as you can. And then when you're ready to stand up, just kind of pry yourself up. And that's another way of doing isometric exercises. Oh my gosh, that was kind of hard. Go for 10 reps. So now let's talk about the root cause of high blood pressure. And this is from metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a combination of things that you find that predispose someone towards having high blood pressure. Typically the person has high triglycerides, low HDLs, high LDLs, high blood sugar, and high insulin. And of course what goes along with this is the person is obese. Metabolic syndrome is primarily caused by the food that we eat and the combinations of foods. Now there are other root causes of high blood pressure, such as thyroid tumors, adrenal gland tumors. Those are things you need to rule out, but those are rare compared to what our diet does to our body. The reason metabolic syndrome starts to occur is because when people eat, if they eat a lot of processed foods or if they eat foods that are high in carbohydrate relative to protein and fat, the body will secrete insulin in an effort to try to get all the carbohydrates or the blood sugar, glucose, from the bloodstream into the cells. What ends up happening is over time, the body's cells become not responsive to the insulin. So the blood sugar stays high, and the pancreas, recognizing that there's too much blood sugar, will continuously try to pump out more and more insulin. So this is why the person will have high blood sugar but high insulin as well, because then that means that the cells themselves are not getting the energy that they need from the glucose. This is called insulin resistance. So there's ways to deal with this, and the first is some people go on extreme diets where they don't eat any carbohydrates whatsoever. No fruits, no vegetables, and of course no bad food, no cakes and cookies and stuff like that, but they only eat fats and proteins. That's one way to deal with it, but it's an extreme way. A more conservative way, more natural way, would be to eat less carbohydrates and more protein and fat relative to those carbohydrates. Because when you do that, then the pancreas does not need to secrete as much insulin because the blood sugar doesn't spike really fast. And over time, the cells start to become more receptive to insulin, and the cells themselves start to heal. This is how you cure metabolic syndrome. In addition to that, the pancreas also secretes another hormone called glucagon. As the sugar starts to go down in our blood vessels, the body wants to have glucose that's available for energy as well as our brain function. So the pancreas will then secrete glucagon, which will go to the cells and break down some of the fat cells and convert them into glucose. This is called gluconeogenesis. And that way we can maintain normal blood sugar throughout the day, which gives us energy, which keeps our brain functioning well so we don't get brain fog. So really at the root cause, metabolic syndrome is an issue of getting the pancreas to function well and control blood sugar. And when you do that, your body functions naturally and can heal itself. Now, what do some of these meals look like? Now, to give you an idea of some of the meals that would work well for this, and this is important, is right here I'm going to give you a sample of food that I eat that will help with all of this.